Howdy, it's tubalcain again, and this is a first in a series that I'm going to call This and That, and it's just going to be an occasional video when I get some new items that I just want to show that I think are of interest to you people out there, and of interest to me too. So this is This and That number 1. Now in the past few months I actually have been to several sales and garage sales, and people send me stuff, so I got about 6 or 8 items I'm going to show you here. But I thought this was interesting. I went to an auction and I see these wheels in a box, and there was 2 of them. Well, this is the hand wheel for the Quill feed of my Bridgeport mill, and most of you will recognize this, and it's made of plastic. And when I was teaching, the kids broke this, so I had to buy a new one, and because they just make them out of cheap plastic. Yeah, it's cheap plastic, it's brittle. And I had made one out of aluminum in the foundry, very similar to the video that I showed, or I made, on how to make a hand wheel for a lathe or whatever it was, and a lot of people saw that, so you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, the auction's going on, and I saw that box with 2 of these, and I thought, man, those look like the milling machine cranks. And this was a auction for an electrician. Brought them home, and sure enough, that's exactly what they are. They fit perfectly, so I got a lifetime supply of cranks. Also in there was this, which when you hear a noise is this hitting the garbage can. That's gone. Also in the box was, this is kind of interesting. I collect Ford wrenches, or I used to. Well, there's a FOMO coal. That's one I don't have. That's not one that's all common. I don't know the exact application. And I used to have several of the Delco light plants. So there's a Delco wrench, but last summer I got rid of that Delco power plant. Armature pull nut. On this side it says cylinder stud nut. Delco light. Remember, the Delco power plants were designed by Boss Kettering. If you want to read an interesting book, read about Charles Kettering, who was in charge of the General Motors lab for research. It was one of the first research labs in the country. Very interesting story. Boss Kettering, he invented the electric starter, and he's the one that is responsible for letting women drive, you know, because now they can start those cars without the Armstrong starter. Here's some other stuff that was in the same box. Another Ford wrench. Or no, this is an International Harvester wrench. Not worth keeping probably, but. And here's a Ford wrench. Boy, they made millions of these. It came with the Model Ts, and I believe the Model A's also, and maybe some of the tractors. This one I got a bunch of, but this is the handiest Ford wrench to change spark plugs on an 8N tractor, because you just barely you can't get in there with a socket. But this allows you to change those spark plugs. It's really handy. I keep one in the 8N. Here's a whole handful of, I think these are distributor wrenches. Totally obsolete. Now that cars don't have distributors as we knew them. And also here is an interesting wrench. This is an Amco, and it's brass. And it's a non-sparking wrench. That was the purpose of them, to be used around fuel lines and things like that, non-sparking. And this copper alloy is said to be dangerous. I don't think they make these anymore, but this was the hardest of all copper alloys that was used in wrenches and other non-sparking applications. And always hammer handles. These are all for claw hammers. You know, I always think when I see these that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because these men go out happily and buy a bunch of handles and they never get put on. And another box someplace with dozens of hammer heads. Never the twain will meet. I told you that that was an electrician's auction, so I bought this drum switch. I had to give 20 bucks for that, but it is brand new. And I know sooner or later I will have a use for that. And these are quite expensive when you buy them. Quite expensive. I'm talking $60, $70, $80 for something like that. But now they make the handle out of, looks like kind of cheap plastic, doesn't it? I told you I came up with a lot of things since last video. People send me things and I thank them for it. And David of Manchester, England sent me a whole stack. I think there's about 7, 8 magazines here called The Model Engineer. These are most interesting magazines. They're British. Notice that their magazine format size is not anything like ours. This was the older ones. They're small. Then they went to this real big size, but they do not match ours. And all our magazines now are being reduced to the size of a TV guide. Have you noticed that? I used to like that Big Life magazine because, you know, it was something to hang on to. Now, oh well, nobody reads anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you, David, for these. And the reason he sent me these is that each one of these contains an article by Tubalcain. Now, there was another Tubalcain, and he spelled his name as 2 words, Tubal and Cain, where I run mine together. But Tom Walshaw, who is now deceased, was an English engineer and author, and he authored over 425 contributions to this magazine over the years. Various articles and plans for building steam engines and all kinds of things like that. And he also authored at least a dozen books, some under his own name, Tom Walshaw, but a whole series of them under the Tubalcain name on how to build steam engines and how to tap holes and how to solder and how to weld and things similar to what I do here in the United States. But thank you, David, for these, and I've been looking through them, and these are consecutively numbered, so that, for instance, this magazine is page 695. So it's easy to find the articles if you have all the magazines. So if you're able to get a hold of any of these, I think it's still in print, but I'm not positive. And he paid the shipping from clear over in the UK, so thank you. Also included in that was a blueprint here in its very large format, and it's for a boiler, steam engine boiler. Now, I'm not sure if Tubalcain himself did the drawing or if he had a draftsman do it, but it's a 3-inch boiler designed by Tubalcain in 75, and he died, I think, in 98. But this was copyrighted by the Reeves Company, so I suppose they had one of their draftsmen do it. And the Reeves Company made a series of steam engines very similar to the Stewart engines. And you engine builders, model builders out there will know what I'm talking about. So I thought you would find that of interest, and there's some good reading here. And when I'm done with these, I'll send these out to my brother Jan in Cody, Wyoming, who also loves to read this type of magazine. And it's really a niche. You know, there's not a big market for this type of thing because most people don't read at all, or they just watch Pawn Stars. Kind of like the show myself, though, I have to admit. My brother Jan sent me this book, and it's called Materials Handbook, and it's by McGraw-Hill. This was on the budget book thing, so it only cost $2. I suppose it was 30 new. But it's got information on just about any kind of material you can think of. Here's beryllium copper, chromic acid, heat insulators, pine oil, just all kinds of things. So that's going to be a good reference book. It's not something you're going to be in bed reading, but it's a nice reference book to have. And actually, to be honest with you, I never heard of it. But it's really a neat book. Got quite a few things in there about metalworking as well. Now remember my video on this cutting oil spill-proof oil can. That was tip number 135. It was called making a spill-proof oil can, and there's like 13,000 views on that, so people really liked that, it seems like. And but But I was greatly criticized by not putting magnets in there, you know, to keep it from vibrating off the bench or off the machine. But, you know, magnets can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And they attract chips, and I don't want magnets in there. Now, if you want to put a magnet in your oil can, go ahead and do it, but that's something I don't like to do. Okay, now Rick France here from Pennsylvania, this is his business card, he does custom polishing. He sent me his version of a spill-proof oil can, so I want to talk a little bit about that. And he also gave me complete instructions here on how to make one. And you can pause your video to read this if you want to. And there's directions on the bottom, but they're kind of small and hard to read. But let me see if I can run through this real quick for you. Now, a spill-proof oil can, that's a little bit of a misnomer because, and I've got some clear cutting oil in there. That's this thread cutting oil. I kind of like this. It doesn't have that terrible sulfur smell of that black vial stuff, but there's oil in there, and he even gave me a little brush. But as far as spill proof, you can still spill the amount that you see in there. In other words, if this goes off the bench, you know, that much is going to spill, but that's all that's going to spill, not the entire content. So that's what's neat about this. And now you can see it refilling itself down there. So let me move this mess aside. And thank you very much, Rick, for this. I appreciate it. And he paid the freight also. Now, this is made out of a beer can, or I guess they call it a beer bottle, the kind with a neck. Well, it's a metal beer bottle. I'm going to paint this after the video because I'd just rather have it red or something. It doesn't say beer on it. But here's how this is made. And this isn't a product that I see much around here because we're in a glass city here that makes glass bottles. So we just see a lot of glass bottles and also, of course, regular metal cans. I don't know where you even buy these, but you know, I guess you can get them at any store. But here's how it's made. And just pretend that this is metal, but actually it's a plastic water bottle. And it's cut off to a certain length. And here was another little section that was thrown away, and he tells you to throw that away also. And then with this top part here, you notch it. 2 notches, and that's where the oil flows. And then this part is turned upside down and pressed into the other container. Now it's not going to go in here very well. I had to split this in order to get it to go, but he said that it will press right in. And then he sanded this and cleaned it up real nice. And there's a little hole right here, a vent hole, like a 1/16 inch hole. You need to drill that before you assemble it. And he sanded this off real nice and smooth, and there's no sharp edges, and this is ready to go. Put a magnet down in there if you want, but I'm not going to. But isn't that neat? Thank you, Rick. And some of you might want to make that. It's a little improvement over this. The only thing I see better about this, it's very stable because it's so squat and low. This is a little bit higher, but should you knock it off, you're not going to spill much. So again, that's Rick's Custom Polishing. Shows you what he does on this card here. Thank you, Rick. Many of you watched my videos on variable frequency drives on my drill press. And in those videos, if you haven't, go look at them. And in the videos, I probably mentioned direct drive or direct current motors, DC motors, which I do favor. And I got several of them in stock, but I do not have a controller for it. My controller burned out. So, but I saved the motors. And I was dreaming that I would come up with one of these. And so I must have been dreaming out loud. But anyway, Eugene out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I thank you very much, Eugene. And I'm not going to mention his last name, because I like to keep things private, unless they tell me that it's okay, and he didn't specifically say that. But he sent me this controller for a DC motor. It's brand new. On the back side is the heat sink. And I'll hope to put that into use this fall. And if I do, there'll be a video on it. Pretty busy this summer. But inside of this package are the complete directions and some push buttons, switches, knobs, potentiometer, hopefully everything that I will need to hook this thing up. And he said it was brand new, so it should work. I hope it matches the voltage and the amperage and all of that stuff. So sure hoping to make a video, and I want to put that on the other drill press, because at one time I did have that DC motor on that little Walker Turner drill press until the control failed on me, and then I went back to the original motor. But I have always had a fascination for direct current motors, and I think now they are going to be a thing of the past because of the variable frequency drive. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I am not an electrician, but I do have some skill along that line, but many of you out there helped me with that VFD, and I thank you for that. So hope you found that interesting. This video is running much longer than what I wanted it to, but I guess I got a lot to show you. You know, there's something wrong with me. Why do I go to junkyards, auctions, garage sales? You know, it's kind of a sickness in a way. And I didn't even show you what's in here, because I think I got to throw this stuff out. There's an old set of sockets and all kinds of adapters, drill adapters with Morse tapers on them, but not real sure what they're for. Actually, what I did, when they held this up, I bid $1 because I wanted the container. I like that type of bin. I got a lot of those, all different colors, different sizes. But I went to the junkyard and said, what do you got in the way of aluminum? And this guy saves stuff for me, and I bought, it was $21, I think. No, it was $14, that's what it was. And, well, actually it cost me $16, because I always tip this guy, you know, so he's got a down payment on his next bottle of Mad Dog 2020, and he's been pretty good to me. But they had a barrel, and I bought 2 of these plates, and I think I'm going back for more. This is 1/2-inch aluminum. Boy, does it machine nice. I already used one. 70 cents a pound is what he gets down there for that. And I was digging through there, and I got a couple of these. There's a lot more of this stuff, too. These are all cut-offs. That's 2 3/4 diameter. There's a couple of those, and these are, oh, I think that's about 1 1/4. Some of those have been drilled in the end, but I like to put these with my scrap because, you know, sooner or later I'm going to have a use for that. So anyway, I hope you found this video of some interest, and I will do more of these under that name This and That if you find that of interest. And I'm also thinking about starting a series called How It Works, or something along that line, showing what I think are interesting mechanical movements, not electrical, but well, maybe electrical too, but how it works would be something that would interest me. And I know there's a series on TV called How It's Made that absolutely fascinates me. So you may see some of that in the near future, and be sure and go to my website, which I'll put the name on here, and I do have my complete courses for sale on the lathe and the milling machine. Bridgeport is coming up soon. This is tubalcain saying so long for now.